Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Do the Lakers have a problem with their medical staff? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always free and never behind a paywall. Of course, Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 23,000 subscribers and watch the magic happen. More importantly, though, you can leave questions, you can leave comments. We look through all of them every day and often try to weave them into the show. I certainly could do that for tomorrow's show with this topic we want to get into today. About the medical staff. We've talked about, kind of obviously injuries all year long. We alluded to this a little bit for yesterday's show. With all the injury information, Andy, that's come out over the last few days, we got a little bit more. Cam Reddish practicing on Wednesday, and he's going to play on Friday. It always shines a light, whether the players are coming back, whether they're not, whatever the report is, it always shines a light on the constant debate that is whether or not the Lakers have a training staff that helps or hurts. And it's an extraordinarily complex question to ask, but it's always there when it comes to the Lakers.
Yeah, and I think with Reddish, what makes it interesting, first of all, I mean, just Reddish being back before we even get into the training staff, I think it is significant for the Lakers to get him back. I know he can be very polarizing among people who cover the team within this own podcast, listeners, viewers.
Let's say polarizing here.
Yes, yeah, but I do think the team has missed Reddish like at his best defensively. The element of disruptiveness, the deflections, the energy, and also just what you get with his size. Like they really have needed the option of his size. At 6'7", he will be the fifth tallest soon-to-be Laker, like active Laker rotation possible guy on this team behind Jackson Hayes, AD, LeBron, and Rui. Like for these purposes, I'm not counting Harry Giles. And like he's also bigger, like stronger than Max Christie.
People complain about Taurean Prince a lot. I mean, there's obviously a spacing issue and some of those things that influence how much Taurean Prince plays. But some of when Reddish isn't available, some of the Prince's minutes are a function of just being 6'8". That does it. Just that.
Yeah, I mean, with Vanderbilt still injured, Gabe Vincent still injured, Christie is the only healthy Laker who is arguably a better perimeter defender on this team, currently healthy, certainly for guys guarding 1 through 3 than Reddish.
I should say 6'7". I believe he's 6'7".
Right. 6'8". So just having the optionality of a guy with those measurables, I think matters. But what makes this interesting, though, in talking about the training staff with Reddish specifically, is we're now dealing with 2 months and change of Cam Reddish dealing with ailments, playing for a couple games, then getting shut down, then playing for a few more games, then getting shut down. And then the last stint that he had, he was looking, I thought, very labored through the overwhelming majority of the games that he was available. And the most recent slate included one where he was inactive and they started playing him again. And then he got shut down again. And it's just very disruptive for a guy that, whether you like it or not, Darvin Ham wants to play Reddish. So if he's going to be in the rotation, you need him out there getting back in rhythm, getting his teammates back in rhythm with him. But it raises that question of how does this keep happening with Cam specifically and then other guys, I guess, broadly? Because you shouldn't have a guy going this often in and out of the rotation. I'm not saying it's necessarily purely all the training staff misevaluating Cam, but there's something going on where they're not able to get a bead on this thing in a way that's working. because they haven't just shut the guy down like Vincent or Vando.
Yeah, this is where it starts getting, and I agree with you that, the ability to have a genuinely defensive oriented, always effective defensively, but a defensive oriented wing with his size is a really big thing for the Lakers to be able to get back. So,
especially now,
I was about to say, with Wood going, having surgery this week, is out for the foreseeable future, perhaps the rest of the season. Vanderbilt is progressing according to schedule. That doesn't really mean anything, but Darvin did at least earlier this week, talk about him in a tone that made you think like they're still hopeful he's going to play. Vincent is closest, I guess, closer of the two. It is really hard to figure out what, because it's like, you hear, oh, the guy's got a knee injury. Well, it sounds like this one. It's there's no such thing as identical injuries, because the rest of a person's physiology isn't the same, and all these other things. And it's hard to say, like, well, why did they miss that? Well, I don't know if they missed it. Sometimes injuries just don't go away. Sometimes someone's feeling better and you get tweaked and something happens in a game in the wrong way that, those first couple games, it's why you have minutes limits and all that kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean something isn't going to happen in that game to tweak it. And you think you're okay, and you might have been if X, Y, and Z didn't happen, but it did. I think that sort of vagueness is at the core of why fans have so many questions about the staff. And I have them, but I also don't know what to do with them. Like, I think it's very hard to define what makes a great training staff. The Lakers, I didn't check it this morning, I think we're 6th this year in man games missed. So while LeBron and AD have been healthy, a lot of other guys have been hurt. But are they hurt because of the training staff? No, probably not, Andy. But like, are they coming back the right way, I think is what you're getting at.
I mean, if you really want to, third eye open, galaxy brain this thing, and I want to make it clear, this is me spouting off with, I know a little bit about this stuff I'm about to mention, but I don't know the depths of it. LeBron and AD have their own guys that they work with. You know what I mean? Like, which at times I know has been a source of frustration from the Lakers side of it, because when it's come to LeBron getting back from injury, AD getting back from injury, you get,
as by the way, do many star players across the league have this.
Right. It's not unusual for LeBron and AD, and maybe across other teams, what I'm about to mention isn't necessarily that unusual either. But I have both heard and you get the sense that the progress and details for LeBron and AD as they have in the past been coming back from injuries hasn't always been communicated in a way to the Lakers and the training staff and whatever. So they feel like they have a full bead of what's going on. That being said, and I don't know how many other guys on the team have their own guys. I don't think anybody does to the degree of LeBron and AD, but I don't know how many others, period. But, this is a year where those two guys using maybe not largely, but a lot of outside people have stayed healthy. In past years, they haven't. It's an inexact.
But flip side is last year, they had the same people.
Sure, exactly. It's an inexact science. Reddish, though, I think is in a lot of ways, though, an embodiment of what can frustrate fans and what often leads them to not trust the team when they hear statements about the progress of player X, because you watch Reddish keep coming back, going back to the inactive, coming back, going back to being inactive again. And for whatever reason, it may even be Reddish not being forthcoming enough with information or overestimating pain tolerance or whatever. I'm not saying it's all on the Lakers side, but I understand where fans have questions about how the whole process is being handled.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep digging into this because it's obviously a critical issue and one that gets a ton of attention again from fans. And I find it really interesting. Just kind of broadly, just think it is such a gray area in sports. And so let's keep digging into it next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver who likes to push things a little bit further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue, perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class exclusive Google built-in is your always updated assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone, Google Assistant, Google Maps, Google Play Store. They're built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment center. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Pathfinder. It has room up to 8, expansive cargo capacity, advanced available 4x4 capability, and up to 6,000 pounds of towing. So take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com.
Locked on Lakers also brought to you by FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets like, being out of your office pool like by noon on the first day of the tournament because you've got like 3 games wrong and it really sucks and then you're just sad. FanDuel now lets you bet on every game of the tourney. So whether you are betting on a big upset or on a 1 seed, time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. It's $200 to spend on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win the whole shebang. Just visit FanDuel.com/shebang, by the way. It's like the tournament. Who's going to be a champion? Just visit FanDuel.com/locked on and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. So, like, people will sometimes email us like, do the Lakers have a great medical staff? And the short answer is, I don't know. They don't have there are a couple staffs around that have historically had, great reputations. For a long time, Andy, the Phoenix staff was seen as really good and this and that. But like, every year, the teams that have lots of injuries seems to change. I don't know. Last year, did Memphis have a good staff? And this year, do they have a terrible staff? Like, everyone on that team is hurt. Does Oklahoma City suddenly have a great staff? Well, Chet was hurt last year. I don't know. So like, stuff happens. I will say the Lakers have a reputation for not necessarily spending big on the sort of ancillary support staff kinds of positions. They have a small front office. They have, I've never been given the impression that like players don't have the things that they need. But do they have the best people doing the best stuff and everything? I don't think so. But I don't necessarily think the people they have there are incompetent either.
The Lakers are really
hard to evaluate,
The Lakers are such, though, too, an interesting team for this question because for so long, with Gary Vitti especially, but also Alex McKechnie, they were considered like, I think, the gold standard for NBA health training staffs. Like, like Gary Vitti, this is very unusual for a trainer, but he had a Q rating. Like Gary Vitti was somebody that I think NBA fans knew around the league because he had been with the organization for so long. It's also, though, I think really interesting to look around the league in the era that has been, I think, too broadly defined as load management. But nonetheless, there's been this emphasis on what is the best way to keep guys healthy, keep their bodies preserved. And there has been more willingness to allow guys to have days off if needed. There's been more advancements in sports science, whatever. And it doesn't seem like guys are staying any healthier. Like, it doesn't seem like the NBA is avoiding injuries any more than they had in the past. I mean, I have my theory that the game is just too spread out now and too fast that I think in a lot of ways, and I'm not sure I'm right, although I ran this by Jeff Stotts one time, who's known as a very, very credible sports injury guy. And he thought at least there could be something to this theory. But I think the game now is harder to keep guys healthy than before. Just my theory on it. But either way, it seems like a lot of teams are dealing with injuries. It's not just the Lakers. I think the real question is just how are they being managed?
But you go back to the 20. I was just looking this up this afternoon. Like the 2014-15 Steve Nash year.
No, that was
like they missed like 350.
Are you talking about Steve Nash's first season with the team?
The second one, I think. We go back to the 2014-15 season. I was just kind of scrolling around looking for different injury seasons, and you mentioned like the VD era and stuff like that. When you go back to 10 years ago, they lost like 350 games to. Well, it actually seemed like they lost 350 games during the season. I mean, they lost 350 man games due to injury. It only felt like they actually lost 350 games. But and so they've had that was the year Julius Randle broke his leg, and Nash missed a season, and Kobe missed 40 games, and
with the Achilles.
It was right. And he had the shoulder thing. There's a ton going on there. And so some of it's just bad luck. Like it wasn't the training staff's fault that Julius Randle broke his leg. And so I think too, fans sometimes get really upset, and I understand why. Like Christian Wood didn't play. They talked about like it wasn't a big deal. He couldn't come back. And then he has surgery. Gabe Vincent was working his way back. They thought he might play, and he kind of came back a little bit, and then he had surgery. And I will say this in defense of any credible doctor, sports physician will look at non-surgical options before surgery. If there is a way to avoid surgery, a good doctor will say, do that thing instead of getting operated on. And then if it doesn't work, if you don't respond to it, and there's no way to know if a player is going to respond to rest and rehab and stuff in the way to play NBA basketball. It's not like they're resting and rehabbing so you can do the stuff that like we do, going out to the gym and getting on a treadmill and they have to play NBA basketball. That is a whole different thing. And there's just no way to know if the body's going to respond the same way. So, I mean, that part of it, I think that, when that happens, I think the training staff gets picked on unfairly. And, and I will also say diagnosis is not easy either. Can be hard to pin down exactly what is wrong with guys from injury to injury.
The Lakers, though, because you and I have been around the team for a while. And, I think some of this is indicative of just, an age of expanded media where everything gets blown up faster and you lose control of stories quicker and all sorts of stuff. But you and I, when we first started covering the team, I know we were lied to our faces plenty of times. That is the nature of doing this job. Mm-hmm. There are times where you get lied to your face publicly and then privately told something else. You suss out other things and you find out when you're being lied. And some of this is just a necessary part of keeping a team on the rails and drama limited. That being said, though, I think you'll agree with me. The Lakers as an organization, in terms of how they deal with media about blank, are a less transparent organization now than they used to be. Like, I think considerably less transparent.
Yes.
I think they are much cagier now. I think they like to keep things shrouded more in secrecy now. And whether you think they have a good reason to do it or not, what that will do, though, is it'll create an appearance, if not even with media, but among fans, where you just start believing less of what they say. And look, at the end of the day, if players perform well, if the team performs well, fans are not going to care if they believe what statements from a team or not. All they ultimately care about is the performance. But when things aren't going well, that's where that lack of outward credibility can create these type of questions that we're discussing now.
Yeah, and look, there's a catch-22 here too, because if you are, too much information, like again, because it's hard to you say, well, we think a guy's going to be back in 3 weeks, but we, 3 to 5 weeks, is our initial estimate. It turns out there's more damage. So then it's like 8 weeks. Well, why did you screw that up? Did you misdiagnose him? This and that?
Sure.
And so, but if you tell people it's going to be 8 weeks and they come back in 2, they're like, well, why are you lying to us? Why don't you tell us? Why are you overplaying?
Or why are you that far off?
Yeah. Right. Why did you think this thing was? And so it's there is not much. That's why, and this is across sports now, where people say, out indefinitely. And indefinitely can mean a week. It can mean 2 weeks. It can mean 5 weeks. It'll be reevaluated in 3 weeks. It's not. The language around these things league wide is different than it was when we first started covering the NBA. All I'm left with is just sort of a vague feeling that the Lakers should be doing better, but I can't honestly say I know what better looks like, and I don't know what they're not doing that would be better. Like, I don't know what they're missing that's better than what they're doing now. Spencer Dinwiddie had more comments about his role, Andy, and they are fascinating. We'll get to it next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by BetterHelp, and we all need an opportunity to, at times, get things off our chest, off our mind, big or small. Certain things can really start to get to you, and they can snowball and create real problems. And it's important to let it out, particularly with somebody who's an unbiased resource in your life. And look, we do this show, Locked on Lakers, with the hope that it can be a nice escape from real life for our viewers, for our listeners. And you love the Lakers. I love the Lakers. There can be a stress release from enjoying a Laker game, but we all know there are more pressing issues in real life than how the Lakers do. I don't care how diehard a fan you are. We all have bigger problems than our favorite sports team. And again, it is important to have an outlet, somebody to speak with. I know that during a really difficult period in my life for my family, it was huge speaking with a professional. Therapy can be different for everyone, but very useful for everyone. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible, suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
I think it was last week, Andy, we did a show and we spent a lot of time on Spencer Dinwiddie and why he hasn't made a massive impact. And he had some questions, he had some comments about the role he's been playing, and expanded on that in some interesting ways this week. I know that certainly caught your eye.
Well, I think the everydayers know this has become something of a hobby horse of mine. Like I've noted how small his usage rate often is game to game. There was one recently we had a usage percentage of 4.4, which is
it's not much bigger than yours.
No, I mean it's incredibly small, particularly for his position. Like for a guy that is supposed to be a ball handling, scoring point guard, that is an exceptionally small usage percentage. And with the team so far, last I checked, he had the lowest usage percentage of anybody who plays rotation minutes. But Monday after practice, Monday shoot around earlier this week, he was talking about his role. And he said, quote, obviously you do need the generational LeBron, Luka level talent. But after that, you're going to need to be this locked in, focused, dedicated to the goal, dot connectors, sacrificial in mindset. And it doesn't mean not aggressive. It means, hey, you may have to swing and give up one of your looks and you may only shoot 4 times. But if you continue to try to take charges or try to be in the right position, all this stuff, you guys can go far. It is technically foreign for me with what I've done with my career. But I sometimes feel I'm in a Reggie Bullock role getting graded on a Spencer Dinwiddie, scale. And what I found really interesting about this, Brian, as again, somebody who has really spent a lot of time wondering why Dinwiddie is being used so dramatically differently than he ever has in his career at a time when it feels to me like the bench could use old, stereotypical Spencer Dinwiddie. Like I said this before, I appreciate what has been very clearly a team first mindset by Dinwiddie. I think he has been leaning into all of his asks, but even putting aside how he's respectfully not really the right type of player for a Reggie Bullock role, he's uninvolved even by Reggie Bullock's standards. Like I looked up some numbers during Dinwiddie and Bullock's time together as Mavericks teammates with Luka, who he referenced. Bullock averaged over 2 seasons about 8-ish field goal attempts per 36 minutes. As a Laker with LeBron, Reggie Bullock, remember he played that half season with the Lakers, averaged 10.5 field goal attempts per 36 minutes. Dinwiddie is averaging 6.7 field goal attempts per 36 as a Laker. And that's with a skill set that is more hands-on than Bullock's. Like, to me, the better comp is the Ramon Sessions half season with the Lakers when he arrived as a pick and roll specialist. And then after a couple of weeks, the ball went back into Kobe's hands and Sessions was back to, he was just spotting
a couple games. It didn't take a couple weeks. Yeah, Kobe's right. Excitement about playing off ball that lasted like 3 games max.
It was so funny. You and I were around that team on a daily basis. I still laugh when I think about Kobe's excitement, which I think he genuinely felt in the moment, like this excitement of somebody else who could run the offense and Kobe could attack off ball, being set up as this weapon. After, like you said, a couple games, like, screw this, Ramon, go stand in the corner. Ramon, who shot like 25% from 3 or something. But that to me feels like the comp. Like, I feel like you're actually taking a Ramon Sessions and trying to make him into Reggie Bullock. It doesn't make sense to me.
A couple things about this. First of all, Reggie Bullock's just minding his own business in Houston, barely playing, wondering, like, what did I do to get wrapped up in this conversation?
Oh, I don't think he meant it as a diss.
I know, he's just catching strays down in Houston. I had to look up where Reggie was this year. I'd kind of forgotten.
He's a good dude, by the way.
No, he's a great guy, but not playing very much with the Rockets. But it's another thing. I mean, this is like the least hot takey, most like milquetoast episode, or maybe milquetoast is the wrong word, but I wish I had more people, like, definitive places to put blame. But like, I don't know if it's Spencer is trying too hard to be a team first guy. I don't think the Lakers at the same time are opening things up. They're not tilting things to free him up in ways that allow him to thrive. But at the same time, I'm not sure they should be doing that either. Like, I don't think Spencer Dinwiddie is the kind of guy that you like make fundamental, especially now the Lakers are playing, generally speaking, 8 or 9 guys. Like, they're not playing a big rotation, where Dinwiddie's like the lead, the scoring guy out on the floor with a bunch of bench players and stuff. He's playing with, whether it's Russell or LeBron or AD or some of these other guys, getting a lot of minutes that way. Like, I don't know if they really should be rewriting the playbook for him. It just gets to why these types of moves are so challenging and why, generally speaking, they don't, like, buyout guys don't have that much of an impact. Like, we don't know, first of all, too, we also don't know how good a player he is at this point. We're like, maybe he slipped a little bit. I don't know. Like, he wasn't very good this year until, he was pretty good. He's been good relatively recently. He wasn't having a great season with the Nets. That said, I could understand why any veteran player would not be having a good season with that team. I think we have to, he is correct. We have to recalibrate what is considered successful for him, because we are not going to see some sort of 6th man role where he is, the first guy off the bench who is sent out there like Jordan Clarkson or someone like that to go score 15 or 16 or 17 points a game. That role is definitely not available on this team. And to that extent that he's being judged on the Spencer scale, that is what people think of when they think of Dinwiddie. So I agree with him there, and I'm sympathetic.
Well, I'm not necessarily looking for him to be a 15 to 20 point a night scorer, but I'm looking for him, again, if you're going to have him on the floor, particularly with a bench unit that could use some pop. It's not like, I recognize you got LeBron, D'Lo, Reeves, Rui, AD. Like, you have scorers on this team, but there are plenty of times where it would be nice to take some of the load off those guys, and Dinwiddie is a natural candidate. And forget how much you rewrite for him. He often barely touches the ball. And, that to me, yes, he could be more aggressive. I'm not putting it all on the Lakers, but I also feel like you need to be trying to implement him more than they seem to be, but also too, and I recognize, I doubt he was told literally, you're going to play the Reggie Bullock role, but the Reggie Bullock role feels like, in a lot of ways, what he has been talking about. If that's what they're looking for from Dinwiddie, I got to be honest, why are you not playing Max Christie? Because Christie is much better suited naturally to be that 3-and-D role than Dinwiddie. That is what Max Christie does. That's actually what is expected of him. If nothing else, it really speaks to.
I will say he handles the ball a little bit more than that. He's so much. It's not straight up, but you're right. If he's not going to shoot at the very least, it does feel like something more Christie-ish than what you'd picture with Dinwiddie.
If nothing else, it speaks to just how little Darvin really wants to put Christie on the floor. If that's really the type of thing, I'm sure Dinwiddie has been told something Bullock-esque is your role. You got a guy who actually is much closer to what you're looking for than Dinwiddie. In a lot of ways, it's not.
I would
fair
love to know exactly. I would love to know exactly how they're defining his role, because, like I said, I think it is. There's a miscommunication. I don't know. Miscommunication is the wrong word. There is a challenge in translating what people need and want on the floor. There is no space for him to control a unit and be the primary scorer player on either unit. That's not that's not a role that's available. And so I don't know. I think there is an element of square peg round hole because he was the only peg available. He was the best peg that was available for the hole that they had. And an over calibration on Dinwiddie's part to try to be the guy who comes in a contract year and all that kind of stuff, whatever, and is a team player, with LeBron and AD and all these other things. It just isn't working the way the Lakers kind of needed to, and they still have, whatever it is, 13 games to unpack it a little bit more. But when Vincent is back, I think it is going to be fascinating to see how they balance that stuff, because they're not getting the pop from Dinwiddie that I think they're hoping for. But the flip side, he's actually been pretty good defensively. So,
yes, I just find it confusing, and I have found it confusing for a while. And just those comments,
it is confusing,
right? And I just found those comments really interesting. It just jumped out at me.
Yep, for sure. Many things about this season have been confusing. And I'm hoping they can remedy that at some point. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to see the show, hang out with over 23,000 subscribers. Lakers have another day off before playing on Friday, and they got to practice it on Wednesday, a little bit more work in on Thursday. We'll see what happens, but get you ready for Friday's game and everything else. And we'll see everybody tomorrow.